Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and we're glad to see you back. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, if you haven't already done so, would you please subscribe to the podcast? It's on 30 different channels, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, you name it, it's out there. And while you're out there, visit globalinvestoragent.com website. These are real estate agents who are trained to work with you and I, for those of us who like to buy and sell real estate. And we've got a lot of clients from all over the world. Our agents are in 26 states and 3 Canadian provinces. So give us a call, look us up. And if you are an agent, click on the Learn More button, because obviously in both right now, US and Canada, we're going through a correction phase. So what better time to balance out your business model to include investors along with the owner occupants and make sure you don't just survive but thrive. So in any case, we've got a great guest today, Matthew Ablakan from Ontario, by the way, Ontario, Canada. And we were just chatting about where we both lived up there. Some of you know I used to live in London, and Matthew's in beautiful Toronto, major world-class city. If you've never been there, you definitely should go, guys. And they can claim, as of 3 years ago, having a NBA championship basketball team. How about that for a first in history?
Yes.
I was actually at one of the games out in the Bay Area. They were playing the Golden State Warriors, and what was funny, half the people were cheering for the Raptors. It was amazing, So great world we live in. So Matthew, if you could, first off, I know we're going to talk about the real estate business and financing these deals and so forth. We've got a lot to cover, but would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are, and give us a little context to build from?
Absolutely. So first of all, thanks for doing this and creating the content, Gary. I mean, if I had this when I first started 11 years ago, I think I'd be in a much better position than I already am, but kudos to you. It's not easy, and I'm happy to be on the show. With regards to my background, I'm born here. My brother and I are both born here. My parents are both immigrants from the Middle East. They came here in the mid 80s. They both left their respective countries and met here. So they have similar stories and journeys of why they left and all this good stuff, but they had it really, really hard, and they were the pioneers. They came here with nothing, and they started to build, and slowly they eventually got their home, they got their kids, they have a car, and they had a little business that was working for them. So the difference between entrepreneurs now and entrepreneurs back then is my parents were very, very educated, but their credentials didn't transfer over. So they became entrepreneurs sheer necessity, not because it was the cool thing to do. And so their backs were against the wall, and they made it happen. So growing up, my brother and I would join my parents at local cash and carries and VR wholesalers, where they would buy products at a low price and sell them for a higher price at their convenience stores to try to make a profit. And so, the concept of buy low and sell high was something that was ingrained in me, in my subconscious, at a very early age. And my brother and I still talk about some of those memories we had at those places, and they were good times. As I grew up, my parents always wanted me to go to school. I did go to university. I graduated with 2 degrees, but I hated school. I hated every single minute of it. And, I was just basically just trying to survive in there. It wasn't the system for me. When I was in high school, I was dabbling in mutual funds, and I had a high interest savings account when I was 16 years old. I had 2 lockers. I was selling a bunch of goods and products out of one locker, and I had my books in another locker. And thank goodness the teachers didn't catch me. Otherwise, God forbid, the students were entrepreneurial. But so I had that in me. I always liked that. I was selling products, making money. I had 2 part-time jobs, and then I learned about real estate when I was 18 years of age. And then I purchased my first pre-construction real estate when I was 19 years old, using part of the bursary my student loan gave me and some savings that I had working 2 part-time jobs. Once I bought that condo, which fast forward 11 years, I still own today. It's tenanted. It's one of my rental properties. I got the bug, and I wanted to continue in real estate. So I got my license, And the only purpose I had for getting my license was just to teach people what I knew, earn a commission, and then buy more real estate. But eventually that started to grow. We were doing right by people, servicing them and serving their needs. We made a lot of people a lot of money these last 11 years. And then, as you know, our friend Zig Ziglar says, you can earn as much as you want in life if you help enough people get what they want out of life. And so who doesn't want financial freedom? Who doesn't want more money? Who doesn't want better experiences and better quality of life? So that's what we've been doing. And so that started to grow and snowball into the Millennials Choice group of companies. And fast forward 11 years later, I have a portfolio of properties and zero financial help from my parents. Actually, I'm getting my parents to invest in real estate now as well.
Nice.
Yeah, to help them with their retirement. So, yeah, it's grown into something really, really awesome. And I can't wait to see what the next 10 years holds.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I really appreciate you sharing that. And you reminded me, I haven't mentioned this. I don't mention it a lot, but in addition to living in London, Ontario, I actually lived in the Danforth, which is a little neighborhood in Toronto. And one thing, I'll get off my promotional horse here for Toronto in a second, but really everybody listening, it really is one of the places you should visit, while you're still here on this planet. It's one of the most international cities you will ever find, and very peaceful city. I mean, virtually almost no crime. I mean, and the food from all over the place. I mean, the Danforth, we've got their version of Chinatown right down the road. We got the Greek Village, which is what the Danforth is. Yep. And you can walk everywhere, take the train everywhere. The T, they call it. I mean, you're on the lake. It's just amazing. And what's also amazing is the opportunities to grow as an entrepreneur, particularly in real estate. And, I've had people say, well, Gary, it's so expensive there now. What's expensive in every big city? But people still have to have a place to live. You can still flip and you can still serve people in the rental market. So let's go ahead and let's touch on that a little bit, if you don't mind, Matthew. Let's start off. Did you start off investing and then got into brokerage, or how did that part take off? What was the first and second,
So I was in university. I had two jobs. I was volunteering. My degree is in teaching, so I'm a certified high school teacher. But my undergrad was in law. So when I was doing this, I didn't have a life. Like volunteering, two jobs, paying for my own tuition. I really didn't have much of a social life anymore. So I was really stressed out. And then that light bulb moment happened in a particular elective in university. I was in the back of the room. My laptop was on. I was not paying attention. And the light bulb moment was landlords make money while they sleep. So that for me was like huge, revolutionary. And I made that paradigm shift, bought my first condo, and then I got licensed a couple months afterwards. So the condo came first, but that was because I was looking at properties. I started going to, at the time, there was no podcast. YouTube was fairly new. And so the way I was learning about real estate was I was actually going to different builder sales offices and talking to the realtors at those sales offices, asking them questions. What's a deposit? How's that different from your down payment? When's this going to be ready? When do I need a mortgage? All these questions that, I was just learning and picking up from just talking with them and going online, trying to find some information. And then I had a realtor who was a friend of mine. He used to actually do some charity work at one of my part-time jobs. So we got to know each other. He was a great guy. I asked him to get me some information about a particular project, which I never ended up buying in. But because I didn't buy, he basically came over my parents' house. We're very family oriented. My mom was sitting in the room. My dad didn't care. And I was in the room. He did his presentation. And then when he left, my mom said, it's good, but just save your money. Save your money. Let it build. Mm-hmm. And hindsight, I know that now after reflection that they lost everything back home. They had to leave because of a communist country they were living in, totalitarian dictatorship. They had to come here. They were being persecuted for being Christian. And so they left with nothing. Like family photos were burned so that they couldn't be identified. A crazy story. Point being that their mindset was very different from my mindset. And so while they loved me and wanted the best for me, they just didn't understand the system we were in. So I had to break free from that. So anyway, the realtor calls me about a month later after missing this brand new condo project launch. And he's like, you should have bought something. They went up $20,000 in the price. And to me at the time, I was like, man, I only have $15,000. That's over 100% ROI before tax. It lit a fire in my belly. And I said, you know what? The next one that comes up, I'm making the move. And then I'm going to tell my parents about it after I make the move.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I found a project that I really liked in Vaughan, Greater Toronto area. And so I bought it, went home with the paperwork in my hand, told my mom about it. She freaked out. She snapped on me. And part of it was fear of, me making a financial mistake, but also fear of losing me. Maybe she thought I was going to move out or something like that. And I calmed her down. I explained everything to her. And now I involve my parents where I drive by and I show them some of the properties I own. It actually motivates them to do more in their lives too. So that's what happened. That's how I got into my first property. A couple months later, I was licensed as a realtor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, that's a great story. You're much faster than I am. When I invested, my first property was January 1986. I literally just turned 23 years old, and then bought another house 2 years later, and another one 3 years after that, another one 5 years after that. And then when I was 35 years old, I just took off. I mean, I just started buying everything in sight. And then I finally got my license January 2002, almost, probably was that 16 years later. And never looked back. For everybody listening here, this is going to sound crazy, but I would tell you, if you're an investor, you really want to consider getting your license. It doesn't hurt you or prevent you from doing anything in any way, shape, or form. It actually only helps you. And for me, for Matthew and many others, we realize it opens up another line of business for us, all related to real estate. It's not like we're creating a brand new business. We're just further leveraging what we're already doing for more profit centers, right? In other words, more lines of business related to the same set of activities. So let's go back to the real estate. I know one thing that people may be interested in is, well, what's it like investing in Ontario? And of course, I used to live up there, and we did investing, and you're investing, and there certainly are rules and regulations like you have anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. But it's not like you think. It's not like it's a deterrent, because remember, wherever anybody lives in homes, which is pretty much everywhere, either they're buying to live in or they're renting to live in. So you can either flip them a property, make a property, or remodeling a home, make it from maybe a $700,000 property to a $1 million property, or buy properties to rent out. So if we could, Matthew, would you mind touching a little bit about, what are one or two some of the basic rules that people should understand, but really why they're not so bad? We talked about this before the show about, rent control. It's not like it's a permanent and, for the rest of your life kind of thing. You can, right? I mean, it's like, well, I'll let you talk about it. I'll let you discuss that.
So obviously lots of stuff, but to touch on some of the most important things, there's a lot of people who made a lot of money flipping real estate here in Ontario. We have a massive supply issue. A lot of the lands in Ontario are protected lands. They cannot be developed. It's up to the premier of Ontario, which is like comparison to like a governor of a state.
Correct.
And so that premier has to decide to free up some of that land. And of course, they face challenges with different groups that don't want that. And so there's always this land that's what's called landlocked. They cannot be developed. So we have supply issues, major supply issues. Now, when the times are good, when money is cheap, demand is high, we have a millennial generation that's now the largest demographic coming into the market, starting their lives. We have Gen Zs on the way. And so there's this push for real estate. And February of 2022, we were seeing 40 to 50 offers on one single property. Yeah. That's big. That's huge. That's not a normal market, but again, we're facing supply issues. So some of the rules you want to keep in mind is, yes, Ontario is a province where it's very pro-tenant. That doesn't mean tenants can get away with everything. It just means you have to navigate it the right way and have the right team of people around you. Knock on wood, 11 years later, I haven't had any issues with my tenants. Minor issues here and there that come up, nothing major. Never had to go to the landlord and tenant board, which is the board that governs relationships between landlords and tenants. And yes, we do have rent control. Now, every year, the province allows you to raise the rent by a prescribed amount. And certain properties that were built and occupied after November 15th of 2018 actually are not, they don't fall under the rent control guidelines. Therefore, you can raise the rent every single year, as long as certain notices are provided 90 days in advance, you can raise it to market rents. You just have to, negotiate with your tenant. And so there's certain rules you have to follow. Every time you buy a property, we pay something called land transfer tax. If you're a first-time home buyer, there's rebates. And so if you want to calculate that, just Google land transfer tax calculator in Ontario. Very, very safe to invest here, especially if you're buying a brand new property that's under construction. There are guarantees by our government. There are guarantees through law, legislation, and there are guarantees by third-party insurance companies. I talk about the new stuff, the pre-construction stuff, because it's very different from how it is in the States. Over here, we have a lot of municipal red tape. So our cities, like for example, the city of Toronto, has a lot of red tape. If you're a developer, you have a piece of land and you want to now develop that land, the application process alone, meaning you've designed everything, you've locked in the land, you've locked in almost everything. The application process alone is taking 18 to 24 months. So let's say a year and a half to 2 years.
That's crazy.
Just to get a project approved. And then what happens is the developer has to go to sales. Then they have to achieve a certain target of sales. And then they can apply for their financing and lock in all their trades and begin construction. Why is that important for a real estate investor? If you buy from a reputable developer here, where we're talking like a multi-million-dollar developer, billion-dollar developer, someone who's very well capitalized, you have the advantage of locking something in at today's price that probably won't be ready for 4 years. And then you don't need a mortgage until that time comes. You don't need to pay any other expenses besides a deposit, which ends up totaling about 20% through different payment plans. And so you buy something at today's price, lock it in. It won't be ready for 4 years. Hopefully by then rents have gone up. Hopefully by then the environment's a lot better. And we know as real estate investors, Gary, that it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. And so you automatically get that push 4 years later. And that's how I did it when I was 19. I wouldn't have been able to buy a property that was already built and qualify for a mortgage at 19. I wasn't even established in my career. I wasn't even licensed. So it gave me that time. And when I was 23 years old, I finally closed that property, did an equity takeout immediately, paid back my student loan I never paid a penny in interest in my student loans. And I just started building from there. So there's a lot of unique opportunities here. We always say it's not a one size fits all. My portfolio, my strategy is buy and hold. I've never sold anything with the exception of my second ever investment property because I traded it up for another property. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've been doing it for a few years longer, simply because I'm older. But two things I learned is there's a famous saying, which is this: when it comes to real estate investing, don't wait and buy and wait. It's always a good time. Certainly the market goes up and goes down, but if you look at the history of real estate, the last recession in the United States was the first time that the real estate market actually really took a dive across the whole country. Canada hasn't experienced that, but that was the only time. But and that recession was led by essentially a broken, fraudulent lending business. In Canada, the beautiful thing for everybody who's not from Canada, in Canada we don't sell our mortgages. We don't have the secondary market. The lenders are all portfolio lenders. They keep the mortgages in house. The only time that's changed is during the pandemic. The Canadian government bought a lot of mortgages. They were trying to prepare in case things got really bad, which they didn't, by the way. Obviously, everything went through the roof during the pandemic. But in any case, what I'm getting at here is it's a much more stable market. It always continues to go up. And the other lesson I learned is this. The second lesson is this: I never really regretted buying a property. There were some that caused me headaches, and I got a lot of gray hair to be sure. But I regretted every one I ever sold. Because I'm looking back years later, I tried to time it and thinking, okay, this is going to top of the market. I'll sell now, and then I'll buy everything on sale in the next recession. Well, guess what? The prices keep going up, and historically, that's what you'll find. So don't wait and buy and wait, and keep everything you buy, just like Matthew's doing. Hey, Matthew, can we talk a little bit about the financing part of it now? I'm assuming if people come into Ontario, specifically Toronto, they can work with you to find these properties, even if they're foreign owners. Can we talk about that for a second? People coming in from, Europe and Asia. I mean, it's such an international place. Can they also get financing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So just on that point, our banking system, as you mentioned, is very different from the United States. In Canada, you have to put minimum down payment requirements. So any property over $500,000 up to $1 million, that portion is going to be 10% down minimum. Anything over $1 million is 20% minimum across the board, whatever that number is. So it's very, very stable. There aren't too much, there's not too much volatility. No one's ever going to lend you over 80% loan to value on $1 million. Now, unless you go privately and you secure funds, you're working on a project, that's different. You get creative, but our banking system doesn't do that. So it's very stable. And then now on the point of foreigners, Canada plans to bring 500,000 immigrants by 2025. We have a very pro-immigration policy here. And typically when immigrants arrive, I know my parents, they rented initially, but then they want to buy a home. They don't want to pay rent. There's this pride of home ownership. And so if you're a landlord or you're thinking about getting in, now is the best time to position yourself for that influx of people. Year over year, even with very aggressive interest rate hikes that we've been experiencing from March 2022, year over year, prices on condos, for example, are still up 3%. Demand is down about by half, 49%. But that's because a lot of people, when they're looking at the news and seeing that our central bank is raising the rates, they just sit on the sidelines, not realizing it's becoming more and more unaffordable as time goes on because the monthly payments are increasing. Even if there's a certain property types are adjusting by 10%, 20%, it's still more expensive to own today than it was February of 2022. Yeah. If you're a foreigner listening to this, that you want to either live in Canada or in Ontario, or you want to invest here, there are lenders that are available to you all across the board. So if you're a AAA client, there's what's called the foreign buyers programs. You can jump into a property with a minimum down payment of 20%. They can verify your income back home. They can verify your credit by just speaking with your financial institution back home as well. So that's if you're AAA. If you're B, if you're in the middle, there's other solutions available for you. If you have to go private, meaning somebody's going to charge you a little bit more, but all they lend on is based on the equity of the property. Minimum 25%, maybe 30% in this market gets you there. So there are opportunities. Don't be afraid of that. There are opportunities to get the financing.
I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for participating in the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Also wanted to let you know that the book Global Investor Agent is officially out in print and in Kindle on Amazon. You can get it by clicking on the link right here. If you are an agent, definitely grab yourself a copy. This book, guys, was not just written by me. I also included 8 other investor agents from around the country. And I didn't just handpick them. I literally opened it up to the entire audience. And it was first come, first serve. So you're going to get feedback from brand new agents all the way up to top 25 team leaders. Some on my team, some are not on my team, with valuable insight and instructions and guidance and actual checklists to follow to not just survive, but thrive in this market. I know you're looking for that advantage, and this is it. By the way, if you are an investor, grab a copy for your agent, and for everybody, all profits from the sale of the book, Kindle and print, all go to the Healing House Foundation, 100%. Thank you for doing that too, guys. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Now, so when it comes to owner-occupant financing versus investor financing, is it the same rules? $1 million above, you've got to put 20% down, and 500,000 to $1 million, you've got to put 10% down. Is it the same, or is there anything else that we need to know about that's different between owner-occupant and investor financing?
So owner-occupied is, if it's your first property, you can put as little as 5% down up to the first $500,000. $500,000 between $1 million, that portion is 10% down, and then $1 million or over is 20% down. If you're an investor, doesn't matter price point, 20% down minimum.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So the owner occupant, it actually is, it's like a tiered tax system. So if you buy a $1.5 million house, you're putting 5% of the first 500,000, 10% of the next, and then 20% of the next. So it's not like 20% of the whole thing versus investor, which is 20% carte blanche.
That's right.
That makes sense. Much more intelligent. Yeah. I'm not knocking my American friends. I used to be a banker in the US, but let's face it, guys, that idea of fractional lending and packaging up mortgages on the secondary market, it looked like a good idea, and I think it can be a good idea, and I think it is now. But boy, whenever there's an opportunity for fraud and corruption, when you're dealing with a lot of money and a lot of control, just beware. And that's exactly what happened to the U.S. and in Canada. I'm not saying something like that would never happen, but I highly doubt it ever would, because of the lending protocol is so much more intelligent and so much more stable. Very, very few foreclosures in Canada. Extremely hard to find,
So let me tell you how the fraud is happening here. So this is the fraud. Okay. So when and it typically happens to newcomers and foreigners. So this is very good to understand. They come here, they deal with people they know and they're used to, and maybe it's a language barrier or something like that. So they deal with somebody that can speak their language, and that automatically builds trust. You're living in a new place. You need somebody that's in your community. I get it. But what's happening is they'll reassure the person that you don't need a mortgage pre-approval. You'll get the mortgage. We'll create phony documents for you and we'll get you the mortgage. When the time comes to actually close, they tell them that there is no mortgage. And so they have to close privately. And remember what I just mentioned? Private lenders don't really care that you're new. They just care about equity. So if you have enough skin in the game, they'll meet you. They'll meet the rest, and then they'll be a lender on your deal. So the problem with that is when the market fluctuates, now the person that's paying these high interest payments that they were not expecting, and it's not paying down their principal, well, they may be forced to sell. And if they sell, they lose money. And so that's where the fraud is happening. In terms of the AAA stuff and the B stuff, it's not so prevailing. I'm sure there are deals getting squeezed through where there's fraudulent paperwork, but the systems are so sophisticated these days that it's very easy to catch. The fraudsters are having a harder and harder time doing it, which is why they're resorting to the private lenders, which happens to be somebody they know, and then they're in on it together. So really, it's really, really stable. Also, when you're getting a mortgage here, it's kind of like a phone contract. So you'll choose 1 year mortgage, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. We do have 7 year and 10 year. Nobody goes for that because the rates are too expensive. And so what I mean by that is the rate that you're getting would be either locked in for that amount of time, or you could get a fluctuating rate, an adjustable rate mortgage, variable rate mortgage. But it depends on what your risk tolerance is. I like fixed rates only because I see the debt as an asset. I like to lock in. I like peace of mind. I like knowing what my payments are. But so every so often, if you chose a 5 year fixed rate option, in 5 years, that mortgage comes up for renewal. The bank has to do some due diligence, check up on your employment, make sure you're still working, etc. And so it's safe. It's safer than most places.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And remember, everybody, because the way the world is moving and growing, countries like US and Canada are going to continue to attract people from all over the world. And if you didn't know this before, just know this. Canada has the highest standard of living in the entire world, higher than the US, higher than everybody, higher standard of living. And I live there and I can vouch for it personally. So, but what I want to do now, if we've got a few more minutes here, can we talk a little bit about your business model? It's called Millennials Choice Group of Companies. That's the holding company. But talk about the suite of services you offer people. I want people to understand that when they meet you and come see you, they don't have to go to many other places. I mean, it's basically, I hate to call it one-stop shopping, but you understand the business from the inside because you're participating in it. You're an investor yourself, and you provide services with that relationship in mind. If you could expand on that a little bit, that would be great,
Yeah, so our core pillar is real estate. So if you're looking to buy or sell or find tenants, we can help you with all of that. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or an investor, I specialize working with investors, but then I have a team of people who work with first-time home buyers and have their own clients, etc. In my first year of real estate, I was losing some deals because of financing. I was referring these clients to mortgage brokers, people at the bank. And I guess because it wasn't their client directly, or I wasn't finding the right people, they weren't taking them too seriously. And so I was losing deals. And so being the little go-getter that I am, I said, I'm going to get my mortgage agent license and let's see how hard that is. So I got my mortgage agent license. I never did a single mortgage. I just partnered with the principal broker of record of a particular mortgage brokerage that we were with. And I said, I'm going to bring you the buyers. I'm never going to advertise in mortgages, so don't expect volume from me. I'm just going to provide that service to my real estate buyers. I'm a real estate guy. I want to be known for real estate. And so that's what we did. And it went very, very well. Fast forward to 2016, I said, I want to build something that's larger than myself, maybe a sellable business one day. And so Millennials Choice was born. And I said, I want to make sure that real estate is at the core pillar. We're going to offer mortgage services. We'll just do it bigger. We're not going to advertise in the mortgage space. We'll just do that on the real estate space. We can offer our clients these mortgage services. And then we started thinking about life insurance and estate planning because, you know, if people max out their TFSAs, tax-free savings accounts, their registered retirement savings plans, a good alternative is a proper insurance product that they can use and they can leverage. We have awesome products here where you can leverage your insurance. And so we brought on the life insurance side. We have a certified financial planner who meets with all of our clients for free. He assesses their needs, answers any of their questions, and if there's opportunity there, then they work together. The fourth part of the company, which is a newer part, is more true to my passion, which is teaching. And although we bring an education-based approach to our sales, I love the teaching side. I love doing this, what we're doing here. So we launched the Financial Freedom Club. And so we get together with a lot of investors multiple times throughout the year. I'm starting to build that out a little bit more where I'm creating members-only content. So if people want to, you know, take a particular course or watch some exclusive content, they can sign up. And because it's not our primary business, I've really subsidized the cost. You can be a member for 12 months for $199 and you access everything. There's no funnel after that. This is what you can access and, you know, enroll in all the courses. And so that's true to my passion. I love that. Pre the pandemic, we were going into high schools, local high schools, and educating students on topics pertaining to real estate and stocks and things like that. But we were doing that for free. And so because of the pandemic, we stopped. But I said, you know what, what's another way we can do it? Let's build this out. And so that's the group of companies. We have 4 companies. And we're working on a few other things that will be dropped in 2023. Okay.
All right. Well, tell you what, I'm gonna bring up some information here. First off, I really appreciate your education-based approach to this because we do the same thing. Years ago when I got in brokerage, I did not like the traditional model of real estate brokerage. It was too archaic, basically an old framework. And what really matters, if you focus on the relationship, you'll prosper. Just like you said, Zig Ziglar. If you just simply help enough other people get what they want, we'll get plenty of what you want. And so we had that philosophy, had that approach. That's probably why Beverly hooked us up for this podcast, because she knew you and I probably had a lot in common. And so in any case, I love that approach. But how can people? I mean, let's look at some of the websites. How can people, like, you've got financialfreedomclub.ca. Tell me some of the other ones you have there where people can find you online and reach out to you.
Yeah, so very easy to get a hold of me via social media. Instagram is probably the best way, at Matthew Ablakan. We have a company page at Millennials Choice as well, but Matthew Ablakan, I manage myself. So just send me a message. Also, I co-authored a book with some Americans, Robert G. Allen and Kevin Barrington, and they made it a bestseller. We're happy to give your audience a free ebook version of that if they visit financialfreedomclub.ca/ebook. Ebook is one word, no hyphen. And on financialfreedomclub.ca, if you do want to take some courses, you want to learn more about the Ontario market, you want to listen to some webinars. I have a great webinar on pre-construction real estate. It's an hour and a half long, but again, you get access to everything for $199, and that's for 12 months. You can visit financialfreedomclub.ca. So It's easy to get a hold of me if you guys would like, and I'm available.
Okay.
Like I said, I believe in giving, and one way you give is of your time and your talents, and the other part is your treasure. So I love giving, and you guys can reach out to me, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, this is pretty awesome. What's interesting is I've met Robert Allen and Kevin Harrington, both actually Kevin twice. We were in a mastermind group together years ago with a group of guys down in Florida. And I ran into him again this past summer in Orlando at another conference. And we agreed to do some photo ops together, and he would record a video for me and things like that. But Robert Allen, one of the very first books I ever read was from him back in the 80s. And so your book, it's called Achieve. Is that right? The book you wrote?
That's right. Yeah. And I got my lovely face on the cover. Sorry, my virtual background's not helping, but I got the Kevin Harrington. I got Robert G. Allen on there. And the great guy, like easy to talk to guys, like, easy to talk to. They're willing to help. And if you could learn one thing from it, I don't sell it. I never sell it. It's my new business card. I'm happy to give you a ebook version of it. If you're ever in the Vaughan area, Toronto area, hit me up. I'll give you a soft copy. That
sounds good. So it's the website millennialschoice.com, and then financialfreedomclub.ca, of course, Canada, is the other one. And then you're on Instagram. And by the way, everybody, just so you have this, if you're not driving, if you're driving, just replay this. But it's Matthew with two T's, MATTHEW, right? And Ablakan, ABLAKAN. You can find Matthew on Instagram too. By the way, I want to bring this up because I've also met Robert Hercevic before, and he's also from Ontario, and he was part of the tank. And like Kevin Harrington was one of the original players there too. And another immigrant, I think he was, I don't know if it was Slovenia. I forget where he was from. One of the Eastern. I think,
Croatia, something like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And an amazing person. He likes to drive nice, fast sports cars, which I like too. There's a great racetrack up there, by the way. You can for a day, you can rent, Ferraris and Lamborghinis and have a blast. And we've done that before. But in any case, guys, this is a great contact for you to have. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you want to invest in Ontario, especially Toronto, I highly encourage you to do that. Remember, 500,000 immigrants coming in the next now probably 2 years. That's a lot. You figure Canada's got, maybe 36 million people right now. The U.S. is about 10 times that. And the U.S. has got to figure out some things on immigration. Both countries, I admit, I've been through it myself personally, the immigration process, a little slow. Both countries, it goes both ways. But at the same time, guys, if you bring something to the table, and I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, but I think the magic number was 500,000. If you brought in 500,000, that magically speeds up the process. It's illegal. It's not like you're bribing anybody. It's just you're showing Canada that you're really intentional and committed to making a living there, making a life there, and they reward you for it by getting it through faster. You generally should have an immigration attorney help you out. That's what I found out the hard way. But it happens every day. I mean, both countries are extremely international. We're built on immigration for people from all over the world, including my own family. And it's one of the best places to be and own and invest in. So, so Matthew, thank you very much. Any final words of wisdom, like where you see things going, or some advice maybe from your parents or grandparents?
Yeah. So the cool thing about the immigration stuff is that we need it. And in Ontario, we're lucky to build 30,000 new homes every year. We're lucky. So on a slow year, it's much less than that. On a good year, it's 40,000. So these people are all going to need a place to live, you guys. It's going to drive rents up. And some words of wisdom. I'm going to speak just in the current environment we're in, because it's a lot of doom and gloom in the news, a lot of clickbaits and all that stuff. But there's a strategy for every season. And real estate is not a passive business. It's an active business. It gets taxed passively, but it's an active business. And so there's a strategy for every season. It may not be the best time to buy and hope to flip in 90 days for a profit, but there's a strategy you can use, and there's not a one size fits all. So we got to find out what's best for you and your family and play the long game, guys. Forget this instant gratification microwave results. And you know who you are, you millennials and Gen Zs. Forget that. Real estate is a long-term play. You got to adopt that mindset.
I agree 100%. Well, listen, Matthew, I know I'm going to be on your podcast too, so I'm looking forward to that. And I think we gave everybody a really good show today. And for all the listeners, if you could please leave a review for this. This has been one of my favorite ones because of the Canadian connection. And I'll be up there. I'm invited to an event actually, in fact, next week. So we're going to try to see if I can make that up in Hamilton, actually Hamilton Club. So in any case,
with my buddy Adrian.
Yeah,
I'll be there. All
right, I'm going to see what I can swing. I've got an event that night already down here, and I've got to try to rearrange things if I can do that. And but a guy named Robert Paperny is going to be up there, and he's more a little bit west. He's west of like Mississauga, just a wee bit. Great brokerage areas, an investor, does a huge business. And we have another agent up there that I taught years ago. He's looking to join, and so this could be a very, very good meeting. So
birds of a feather flock together.
That's it, man. There's so much commonality. It's amazing. So, listen. God bless you. God bless everybody listening. Leave that review. While you're leaving the review, go to the website. Let me get that for you again. Financialfreedomclub.ca and then millennialschoice.com. Okay. And after you visit those two sites, please visit globalinvestoragent.com. Select yourself an agent to work with who's trained to work with you, right, to help you buy and sell real estate. And also, if you are an agent, click on the learn more, because you should definitely make this part of your model. I'm not just saying that. I should probably be more animated when I say that. It's extremely important for you agents to make this part of your model and learn how to do it properly. And you've got a great resource here in Matthew, who also teaches the subject. So, and by the way, I'll put a timestamp on this one. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa to all of you out there. God bless you and your families, and we'll see you on the next Massive Passive Cashflow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cashflow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.